Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to my YouTube channel. This is my first video ever. And in this video, I'm going to be knitting a top. I'm going to be recreating a top that I just finished making this morning. And this top that I just finished making was my first knit top I've ever made. So it's pretty easy to make. And yeah, and I loved it so much that I really wanted to recreate it in a different color. So let me just show you what the top looks like that I just finished making. And when you stretch it out, it's kind of see-through, which is the look I was going for. Like I wanted it to look even more stretched out than it actually ends up being, but actually worked out pretty perfectly, which I don't know how it happened because I did not really know what I was doing going into this. But anyways, I'm going to be making the exact same thing, but in a different color this time. And yeah, if you guys want to make the same thing, hopefully this video can serve as some sort of guide to do that. I don't know how great my instructions are going to be since I would consider myself very much a beginner still. I have some experience knitting. When I was little, I learned how to do it and I did it a lot back then, but I haven't done it in a really long time and I had to watch videos to relearn how to do it before making this top. So yeah, I don't know how great my instructions are going to be, and it's my first time making a video. So anyways, let's go ahead and get started. I'm gonna grab my needles and my yarn and then I will be right back. Okay, so I'm back and I have my needles and I have my yarn. So this is the yarn we'll be working with, and the needles, I'm gonna be working with circular needles. I think that's what they're called. The size of the needle is 9 millimeters. So anyways, hopefully this will turn out okay, because when I made the white top, I think my yarn was a little bit thicker, but if anything, I might like it better because it'll have more of like a stretched out look maybe, or like a more holes. The holes will be larger in it, so I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how it looks. So okay, so I'm gonna start by casting on. I'm gonna do a long tail cast on. So I'm gonna leave myself a lot of extra yarn. Okay, and then I'm gonna start by making a slip knot. And then I'm just going to cast on the same amount of stitches as my last top. So the last top I made, I think I had 63 stitches that I cast on. I believe so. I kind of wanted it to be, I kind of wanted to make it a little smaller this time. So maybe I'm kind of scared to change it up too much, so maybe I'm just gonna take off 2 stitches. So make it 64. Oh yeah, and I recommend if you're making this to cast on an even amount of stitches. So no odd numbers here, just even numbers. So I'm gonna cast on 64 stitches. Okay, so I just want to show you how I am casting on these long tail cast on stitches here. So I'm going to start by giving myself a very long tail, and then I'm going to make a slip knot, and then I'm going to take my circular needles here and I'm going to slip the slip knot onto my needle. So I'm making sure that this piece of yarn right here is the tail end of the yarn. So it has an end here. And this piece of yarn right here is connected to my ball of yarn. So this is how you do the long tail cast on. So I'm gonna go under here, under here. We're gonna do that again. So I'm just demonstrating it really quickly here, but if you need more instructions on how to do the long tail cast on, then I definitely recommend checking out a video on YouTube specifically for how to do the long tail cast on, just because my instructions here are probably not the best for a beginner, but I just wanted to show you guys how it's done. If you wanted some quick instructions, pretty easy once you get the hang of it. Okay, so I just finished casting on 64 stitches, and so now I'm just going to insert my needle and connect and join the round. So pretty much I'm just gonna knit a bunch of rows, and I'm gonna be using my previous top as a reference, but if you're making this yourself, you're pretty much just gonna be doing a regular knit stitch, and you're gonna be knitting the amount of rows that would cover this section of your body. So yeah, as you're knitting, just make sure to measure it up against your body as you go, just to make sure you have the right amount of rows before the next step. Okay, so I'm just going to continue to knit these rows, and I will check back in once I have a few rows completed. Hello, I'm back. It has been 2 days since I filmed last. I got a little busy and it took me a while to finish these rows, but I'm back and I have finished them. This is what they look like. And I measured it up against the top that I already made, so I know that this is the right amount of stitches for me. But just a reminder, if you're making this yourself, to measure it against your bust. So technically this would cover my bust area in length. Anyways, I'm gonna get on to the next step of this top. So next I'm gonna be splitting this in half. That sounds confusing, but pretty much I'm going to be taking this and I'm gonna transfer half of these stitches in the round onto this right here. So I have a total of 64 stitches, so I'm gonna split that in half. That would be 32. So I'm going to put 32 of these stitches onto this right here, and then I should have 32 stitches on here and 32 stitches left on my circular needle. So I'm going to go ahead and transfer these stitches. So now I have 32 stitches on my stitch holder thing right here, and I have, 32 stitches on my circular needles. So now I'm just gonna be knitting straight rows. I think that's what it would be called. I'm no longer working in the round, so I'm gonna be working back and forth along these 32 stitches that are on my circular needles right now. So I'm gonna be knitting stock knit stitch now. So I'm gonna be doing 1 row of knit and 1 row of purl, and just to kind of match the rest of the top. So this is optional if you're doing this yourself, but what I'm gonna do is for the first 2 rows of doing the straight rows, I'm gonna do 1 decrease on each end of the row, just to kind of taper it in a little bit. I kind of want a halter top style top, so I don't want it to be like a regular like muscle shirt kind of look. I want it to kind of go like in a little bit. But you don't have to do that. You could easily just skip out on the decreased stitches, and it would be a lot easier, and you just continue doing a stock knit stitch until you reach up here, do a little bit of strap, and then you're done. But I'm gonna do 2 rows of a decrease on each end of the row. Yeah, just because I did that with my last top and I ended up really liking it, so I'm gonna do it again. I'm gonna get started on these rows, and then I will check back in once I have reached the neckline. Okay, so I have finished knitting this portion of the top right here. So we were knitting in the round, and then I started doing some straight rows of stock knit stitch all the way up until this point here. And what I ended up doing is placing my stitches that were on my circular needles onto this little stitch holder right here. And I did that because I'm gonna wait to cast off these stitches until I have completed this top and had a chance to try it on. Just because I don't know how it's gonna fit me yet, and if I cast off, I won't have the opportunity to change the shape a little bit if I need to. So this portion is completed. All I have left is casting off these stitches, which I will do later on. So our next step is now to start the other side of the top. So another thing to mention is I have decided to make this the back portion of the top, which means that this portion here that I will be knitting will be the front side of the top. So the only difference between the two is that the front side of the top will have some straps, whereas the back side of the top, I'm just going to cast off these stitches just in a straight line. Anyways, so what we're gonna do for the front side of the top is the exact same thing we did for the back side of the top. So we're gonna start with 2 rows where we're gonna do a decrease on each end of the row, and then the rest will just be some stockinette stitch until we reach the point where we want to add some straps. So let's get started on this. Okay, so we're now going to take these 32 stitches that are my stitch holder here, and we're going to place them back on our circular needles. So I'm just going to add these stitches. Okay, so I now have all of my stitches on my circular needles, and I'm just gonna start working down the row in our stockinette stitch. And the first row I'm going to purl. So also you'll notice if you are doing this top and you did it the same way as I did it, you may not have any working yarn to work with. So what you'll do is just insert your needle as if you're about to purl the stitch, and then just take some new yarn and simply just loop it on your needle, and then just continue on like that. Since this is our first row, we are going to decrease. So I just did 1 purl stitch, and then now I'm going to do 1 decrease. And then I'm just going to continue purling until I have 3 stitches left, and then I will do another decrease and then 1 individual purl stitch. Okay, so I only have 3 stitches left, so now I'm gonna do a decrease. And now I'm just going to do a regular knit stitch, and then a decrease, and then I'm just going to continue to knit down the row until I have 3 stitches left. Now I have 3 stitches left. So I'm going to knit these 2 together for a decrease, then just knit this stitch on its own. There we go. And now the rest of the rows, we're just going to be doing regular stockinette stitch. So just going back and forth between 1 row of knit, 1 row of purl, until I reach the length that I want this front section of my top to be. just finished knitting, oops, both sides of the top here, so the front and the back side. And I was actually able to get a second pair of circular needles in size, oh my gosh, I forget what size this even is, size 9mm, and which allowed me to work on both sides of the top at the same time. Because when I finish the back side of the top, after starting and making the front side of the top, I realized I need to make the back side a little longer. So if I didn't have the second pair of needles, I would have had to go back and forth between putting my stitches on a stitch holder and then taking them off again and on again until I got the length that I like. So having this extra pair of circular needles helped a lot. So I just finished trying on the top and I am happy with the length of both sides now. So I'm going to get started on the next step, which is just binding everything off, as well as creating the straps off of the front section at the top. I am just going to, I think I'm going to start with binding off the back section first, and then I'll get started on the straps after that. Okay, so we're gonna be using a stretchy bind off method. So I'm just gonna show you guys how to do that. So we're on the purl side, so I'm gonna do this purlwise. So I'm just going to purl one stitch, purl a second stitch, and then instead of slipping the back stitch over the front stitch, I am going to purl these two stitches together. And now we're just going to continue doing that until we reach the end of the row. So I'm just going to purl one stitch here. And when I have two stitches on my right needle, I'm going to purl them together. I'm gonna do that a few more times for you guys here. So I just want to note that I am binding off with purl stitches here because I'm on the purl side of my work. But if you end up on the knit side of your work, you would do the exact same thing, just with knit stitches. So instead of purling, I would just knit. So at this point here, if I was on my knit side and I was doing this knitwise, I would knit these two stitches together instead of purling these two stitches together. Okay, so I just finished binding off all my stitches and I'm left with just one stitch on my needle here. So I'm just gonna grab my scissors and cut my yarn here. And I'm just gonna pull my yarn through the loop. And that's it. And now I've just completed the back side of my top. Okay, so now we're working along the front side of the top and we're gonna start by creating the straps. So we're gonna start by creating one of the straps here and then we're gonna bind off a bunch of stitches for our neckline and then create the second strap at the end. Also, I just want to note that I cut my yarn after creating this side of the top by accident, so I'm gonna just feed in some new yarn as I go. So I'm gonna work 3 stitches for each strap. So notice we're on the purl side again, so I'm gonna be purling on this side as well. I'm going to just purl 3 stitches. Also, I'm just feeding in some new yarn here. And you don't have to do this yourselves. This is just because I cut my yarn and I need some new yarn now. So this is 3 stitches here. It just looks like 4 because of the yarn I worked in, but it is 3 stitches. So now I'm going to start binding off my stitches. So I just purled another stitch and I'm going to purl a 5th stitch. So now I have 5 stitches. Again, it looks like 6 because of the yarn I fed in earlier, but it is 5 stitches. And now I'm going to purl these 2 stitches together. And these 3 stitches will be left alone and they will be used for creating the straps. But now I'm going to start binding off. So I'm going to purl these 2 stitches together. And I'm going to do that for the entire neckline. Also, I do realize this probably seems pretty complicated. If you are truly a beginner, I would recommend watching some tutorials on how to do a stretchy bind off, as well as binding off a neckline, or how to create straps. Again, like I mentioned earlier, I would consider myself a beginner as well, and I watched a bunch of tutorials on how to do these things specifically right before making this top. So if you've done something like this before, hopefully just watching me do it will make sense. But if you're a beginner learning how to do this and this part of the video is a bit confusing, then I definitely recommend watching some videos on how to do these steps correctly beforehand. Okay, so I continue to bind off the entire neckline until I have just 2 stitches left on my left needle, and now I'm just going to knit the last 2 stitches. Combined with the 1 stitch that was on my right needle, I now have 3 stitches here. So now each one of my straps is still on this 1 pair of circular needles here. And since I cast off the back side of the top first, now I have this extra pair of circular needles that I was using for the back side I can now use for one of the straps, and I can work both straps at the same time. If you don't have an extra pair of circular needles in the same size, then I would recommend just adding the stitches of one of the straps onto a stitch holder as you work the other strap. So I'm just gonna show you guys here. So we're just going to work these 3 stitches using stock knit until we reach our desired length. So I knit those 3 and then I turn around, purl 3 stitches, and so on until I reach the length I want. I'm gonna do the exact same thing for the other strap. I'm gonna do it off camera, and then I will be back once I have both straps completed. Okay, so I have finally finished knitting the top here, so I'm gonna go ahead and show you guys. This is what it's looking like right now. So I finished the knitting portion, and now all I have left to do is sewing the straps on the front side of the top onto the back side of the top. And then also after that, I'm going to weave in all of these extra ends here, and then I will be done this top. So I'm gonna go ahead and start the sewing process now, and I'm gonna bring you guys along with so you can see a bit of the process. But yeah, let's get started. bright out right now, but hopefully the lighting's okay. If anything, it might be extra good today. So, okay, so I have the top on currently, so I'm just gonna back up and show you guys. So this is the top. I really, really like it. It turned out even nicer than I thought it would, so I'm really, really happy with it. I found this top pretty easy to make, just like the last one that I made. But yeah, I'm gonna give you guys a little bit of a close-up of this top. So I'm really liking the mesh look that this top has going on. And I achieved the mesh look by using much chunkier needles than this yarn recommended on the labels. But yeah, I had a lot of fun making this video, and hopefully you guys had a lot of fun watching it. But I think I'm gonna end this video here. But thank you guys for watching, and hopefully I will see you guys in the next video. So bye.